Not the appropriation. And it's just like, where's your mom? Like, where is your mom? What's up, book babes? Welcome to a new video, new vibes on my YouTube channel. You're always welcome to my channel. My name is Keionna. Thank you guys so much for finding your way here. And now that you are here, please make sure you guys are signed into YouTube to subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell to join the notification crew and sprinkle some love on that like button to better help this channel grow if you like this video. I am sorry if anybody's noticed I haven't posted much recently. Life has been really crazy in general with everything going on in these foreign countries and all this like politics and stuff. I had my 10-year high school reunion just last month, and I also went to homecoming last month, so it's just been a lot going on. Life has been a whirlwind. I know that's not something that you guys really want to hear, but I just want to say thank you guys so much for all of your support for my channel. We finally achieved 800 subscribers, and I just feel like that is such a big deal. So I'm super happy about that. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel and subscribing. I can't believe 800 of you guys have subscribed to my channel and just been subscribed ever since. It's just amazing. So I'm super glad that we're here. And yeah, we are on the road to 1K subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe now. I recently read a series of Colleen Hoover books, and if you're from the book community, you should know who Colleen Hoover is. And if you don't, she is an American author who writes primarily young adult romance novels. I read one of her standalone novels and two from a sequel. I'm sure we all know It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. And I also got reminders of him. I'm not sure if most of you guys are familiar with this book because I don't think it got that much hype on here, but I stumbled across it when I was ordering these books, and I thought that the storyline was something I would be interested in, so I got this one as well. These are the first ever Colleen Hoover books that I've ever picked up, and I had high expectations for them because of all of the hype surrounding these particular books. And the author talks a lot about how her books gained popularity through TikTok. So if you guys want to hear all of my thoughts on these Colleen Hoover books, then please continue watching. First things first, do not let these covers fool you. I feel like these are the perfect cookie cutter covers, but what you get inside of these books is nothing like that. These books are super messy, like the protagonist doing something messy or getting themselves into a messy situation and then trying to get themselves out of a messy situation by doing something even messier. I feel like it's safe to say that you can pretty much assume that there are some pretty heavy triggers in any Colleen Hoover book based on the types of books that she writes. I feel like she needs her own genre because these are not your average romance novels, and the fact that they're targeted towards young adults is crazy. I feel like it wouldn't hurt to add a list of triggers to the beginning of each book. So I'm gonna jump ahead with my honest opinion on these books and say that I do not think that these books send the right message to readers, and I was very disappointed by her books. I do think that her books might be helpful to somebody who may be in a similar situation. However, I still emphasize I don't think that her books send the greatest or the right message to readers. As I was reading her books, I was really ready to finish her books quickly and move on to something brand new and fresh. So I don't think I'm gonna waste any more of my time on her books. However, I do think I might pick up one of her other books called Verity because a really good friend of mine recommended it, but I'm not gonna waste any more of my time on any of her other books that were recommended on BookTube. Ugly Love, none of that. No, I'm not doing it. It's not for me. On a positive note, I am glad that I stepped out of my comfort zone to read these books because I'm not used to these stories at all. I feel like there was just no hope for anybody in these books, and there was just so much despair. And I feel like whatever slither of hope there may have been for any of these characters, I feel like is where all of the hype is coming from on Book Talk, because I just feel like there is just absolutely no way. Like, starting with reminders of him, just reading the first page alone, I was literally thinking, what am I getting myself into? It seemed so toxic. So here we have this dual POV romantic fiction, but the romance is the actual plot twist. And this romance stems from the actual story, which is about a guy named Scotty who was tragically killed in a car accident by the main character, who was his girlfriend named Keionna. Keionna is the main character, and her life is a mess. Life was challenging for her as a child. Years later, she is convicted and sentenced to jail for 5 years for the accident that killed Scotty while she was drunk driving. On top of all of that, she later finds out that she's pregnant with Scotty's child and is forced to give the child to Scotty's parents to raise. You can imagine that this is tough for Keionna, and also Scotty's parents hate her. DM is their daughter's name, and I think that name is so pretty. I love it. It was literally like the best part of the entire book for me. The plot twist here is Scotty's best friend, Ledger, and we'll get into that later. But Ledger also took on a role in DM's life along with the grandparents. So when Keionna is released from jail, she goes back to her hometown to reclaim her child. A huge red flag to me was the fact that the grandparents never talked to DM about her mother. Granted, I do understand protecting the child, but I'm sure at some point the child would want to know where her parents are, and I feel like at the very least they could have talked to her about her mother. This is the first fictional book written up close about motherhood that I'm reading, so I do feel like I need to go out and buy some more positive books on motherhood to counter all of this negativity that's going on, because this is a trauma-induced story. Long story short, when Keionna returns back to her hometown, she winds up at a bar that just so happens to be owned by Ledger, who is the best friend, and he starts flirting with her, which is a red flag. And they wind up being involved with each other. This definitely gave wish fulfillment. Like, who in their right mind is going to write a letter to their dead ex-boyfriend about a random guy that they just met in a bar? Like, okay, that's weird, but whatever helps her sleep better at night. Kenna's letters to Scotty made me very emotional. It's like the memories of him are still very much real and alive. Scotty's story is sort of overlapped by her story throughout the book, and she's sort of treated like a ravaged stray animal because of this, and even by the best friend Ledger, which is another huge red flag to me. And I don't like Ledger. I did not like the way that he treated her after he found out who she was, because it's like, do you really hate her, or you hate the fact that you really love her? Even though he's supposed to be somewhat of a superhero for her, I still feel like him wanting to be with her after realizing whose girlfriend she was is cringe, because after he found out, he still wanted to see her. Keionna gives big main character vibes, and Ledger just plays right into it. So Keionna went from being the villain to being the victim, which I don't buy it. I feel like it should be called for what it is, because she did commit a crime and she fled the scene. I don't believe that she should be condemned and made to feel guilty for it forever. But to go from that to not being held accountable at all whatsoever, I don't think sends the right message. Yes, Keionna deserves to be in her daughter's life. Yes, Keionna deserves to be happy and have a good start in life. But I think the whole Ledger being the superhero and rescuing her from them not liking her, I just didn't like that. I wanted to see Keionna be her own hero by knowing herself better. I wanted Keionna to be her own superhero. I feel like she just laid around and worked her little jobs and tried as best as she could to finesse her way back into her child's life without any real solid plan or anything. Just off of sheer luck and will and pretty privilege, and like, The whole third and fourth quarter is basically just Kenna and Ledger making out the entire time. This ending is so slow and dragged out, and it's just Kenna feeling sorry for herself over and over again. And I was hoping that at some point the narrative would change, but it persisted, I suppose, out of respect for Scotty. So I think Colleen Hoover might be a little overrated. I think y'all hyped it up a little too much because I hated this book. I hated Ledger. I hated his voice. He doesn't seem sexy to me at all, and he's supposed to be Mr. Still Your Girl. And the writing is mediocre. I feel like there's no real je ne sais quoi. It's just one big wish fulfillment without any real thought or effort into the characters. They all pretty much sound like the same person. I feel like the only person whose voice is the most distinctive is Kenna's because she's the main character, and also Diem because she's the only child of the story. For the longest time, I was trying to figure out where this book takes place, and come to find out there is no real set location for this story, which I think is kind of odd, but nonetheless I did still feel that sense of escapism, and that is one aspect that I can say that this book does have. But honestly, I was trying to escape from reading these books myself because they're just too much for me. They're very heavy on the emotional side. So if that is something that you can tolerate, then you might like them. So this book is also kind of funny in a witty way. And with books like these, the pacing is actually rather quick because the pace moves at which the main character begins to like open up and show more vulnerability. I glided right through these books as I was reading. This is the type of book that I know that when I start reading it, I'm gonna want to finish it to the very end, but it just fell so flat for me. It wasn't really a triumphant, victorious ending, and it was very relaxed and like mellow in tone, and I'm not really into books like this. I feel like the storyline was kind of corny, so I rated it 3 stars. With all of her books, I just feel like it's just this never-ending cycle of like suffering for the characters, and I feel like as you're reading it, you're gonna have to suffer with these characters to the very end. I really honestly don't even know what made me get Colleen Hoover books in the first place. Okay, so next book is It Ends With Us. Yo, okay, so wait. This book was actually pretty good. I actually really liked this book. It wasn't great, but it was good. I was actually quite blown away by this book. I feel like towards the ending, like maybe around 30 pages towards the end, I was like, she was kind of losing me. But I feel like Miss Hoover definitely hit us with that wow factor towards the end of this story. This is the first book to the sequel, so you're supposed to read It Ends With Us first, and then you're supposed to read It Starts With Us. Just as a sidebar, I feel like they could have worked out these covers so much better. I feel like they're not really giving us anything. It's just this wooden background with these like torn up lilies or something, and I just feel like they could have done a much better job on the covers. But looking at the context, this book is a little bit more upbeat than Reminders of Him. I like the main character, Lily Bloom. She's a little bit more tolerable than the previous main character. Starting this book after Reminders of Him was like a breath of fresh air after all of that mess that went down in Reminders of Him. But I think that's because the plot twist doesn't start out in the beginning like it did in Reminders of Him, and it's actually kind of like, you know, normal, like worked out throughout the story. Another thing about Colleen Hoover's books is like they all kind of are like the same thing. Each storyline is tweaked just a little bit differently, but I just like when authors have a lot more autonomy throughout their novels. I just feel like it's more creative than it's just like this ongoing run along storyline. Like they all kind of just like, they're different but they're kind of the same. Like I said, cookie cutter, very much like it's just the same thing over and over. It's the same cycle, and I just like want to get out of it. But I think that her writing improved in this book. It's a little bit more my speed, and I think it's more with the times. Lily is an entrepreneur and a business owner, which is something that I really liked about this book. And she meets a really handsome neurologist named Ryle, and he's just an immediate red flag from the very beginning, but they both decide to continue to pursue each other anyway. Lily basically took the bait. So what started out as this new budding and exciting relationship turned into this dark, twisted fantasy. And the plot twist is this love triangle situation where somebody from Lily's past steps in to try to save her. Ryle has an abusive past. Always do your research on a person before falling in love. They could be a really bad person that is covering up a dark past with their status and money. At some point I had to compartmentalize what is actually going on and realize how unhealthy their relationship actually was. It was almost scary how somehow the lines got a little bit blurred between what's an abusive relationship and what's a healthy one. It romanticizes abuse, so I do see where the controversy comes from. Even in Reminders of Him, I understood what the controversy was all about. It's like her main characters are not the brightest crayon in the coloring box. I think that these are all great lessons for people to learn, and some people might be offended by her writing. It's almost like you want to feel sorry for the abuser, which that is not the right message to send. It's bad, okay? Yes, she should run for her life, but this book will literally have you thinking, well, it's not that bad. Oh, he paid the bills. It's not that bad. Oh, he made up for it. It's not that bad. Nah, it's bad. After reading this book, whenever I think about It Starts With Us, all I think about is smut. There is an over exaggerated amount of it in this book. I feel like after reading smut over time, your imagination becomes better and better, because I feel like I was just warming up to it in the first book. But this book opened my eyes to real smut in fiction, I think. A lot of what you're doing when you're reading Colleen Hoover is like reading in between the lines, or like filling in the spaces. It's like, okay, where's her mother after all this time that she moved to Boston? Like, after her mom said that she was moving to Boston, like, we never hear about her mom ever again after that. And it's just like, where's your mom? Like, where is your mom? And why is like a great majority of the book like the main character's journal entries to Ellen DeGeneres? It's like the author kind of just like wanted to force like it to make sense. I'm just gonna write all this stuff and then hopefully like at the end it's all gonna make sense. I totally don't understand all of the letters that Lily was writing to Ellen DeGeneres. I don't like the fact that all of these books have the same writing style, like the same dual POV and the same epistolary style of writing, where there are like these letters that are written as an account for another person or something. But the first two books definitely have that escapism element, so I definitely see what the hype was about because of that. The ending was empowering and had just enough momentum to keep me on the edge of my seat for the next book. Second book to the sequel and the last book in this video is It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. This book was a total letdown. I know this sounds pretty shallow, but I hated all of the names in this book. I didn't care for any of the characters. All of their names sound like a middle schooler could have made them up. And I felt kind of bad about DNFing it, so I just endured reading it. But there's just like a bunch of characters that I just do not care for. And I kind of feel like when Colleen Hoover was writing these books, I felt like she knew that they were bad, but she just kept writing them anyway. This book single-handedly is probably the worst book that I've ever read. This series is centered around the main character, Lily's love life, and I'm so happy for her that she gets to have her happy ending. But I did have to rate this book 1 star, and here's why. It was really good catching up with the characters in this refreshing sequel. I felt myself becoming more engaged with the characters right along with the plot of this book. But there's like no action, and I'm like, she gotta be able to turn this around or I'm out of here. It's a little boring. The most exciting thing that's going on in this book is that there's a vandal on the loose, and they talk a little bit about their businesses, and Lily is just reading her journal entries the entire time. I'm like, was the author trying to make this a slow burn? Because it's super boring, and at this point I'm just not even here for a Lily and Atlas reunion at this point. I feel like it's either go hard or go home. So Atlas is the guy from Lily's past that she allowed back into her life. Atlas is this sweet and gentle soul, So I don't completely disagree with his character. However, Lily needed a lot of work in the sense that she just came out of this abusive relationship and she is now a newly single mother. So I feel like she really needed time to like learn herself. It's mostly her just trying to convince the reader of who she is, which is why she feels so guilty throughout the story and why she ended up with Raul in the first place, and why she's so indecisive about whether or not she wants to be with Atlas or not. It's like the majority of the book, we're just waiting for her to make her mind up and she's like thinking things through. But honestly, she's just waiting for something to happen and it's just a lot of mind games going on. I don't like my romance stories to be like that. It's like everyone's kind of like walking on eggshells, or the situation is just super delicate because of Ryle. Lily is sort of like weaving in and out of her relationship between Ryle and Atlas, and this book was really supposed to be an intimate story between Atlas and Lily, but it doesn't even seem like Lily really wants Atlas like that. So it's sort of like a complete waste of a romance. This was a complete disappointment. Nothing is happening in this book, and I'm just not here for Lily or Atlas at all, and that was the whole point of the book. It just felt so flat. So whoever recommended these books has no taste whatsoever. Yes, the covers are pretty, but it's just like such a waste. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you watched it to the very end, please leave me a white heart emoji in the comments down below, along with your comments about Colleen Hoover's books. I'll see y'all in the next video. Until then, happy reading.